We're going to talk today about a very important midah called Yesod. This is going to be Yesod week, and with the help of Hashem, we're going to understand deeply what this energy is, what this midah is. And if we understand what Yesod is, all of the blessing that Hashem has for us, that we've been working on all of these weeks, for the last 5 weeks, we've been literally accruing blessing from heaven, that all that blessing will actually come into actuality, will actually come into fruition. We don't want to just accrue all the blessing, but never let it arrive at the destination. It's great that you've got all this stuff, but if there's a supply chain breakdown, you can't get the stuff to the destination, then the blessing is there in potential, but it's not there in actual. We're going to see that this midah Yesod is one of the elements that allows blessing to come from potential to actual. So let's begin at the beginning. What does Yesod mean? What's a Yesod? Yesod? The foundation. The foundation. Let's talk about a Yesod. Anybody ever build a building? Yeah?
Kind of like a little cement.
A Lego building.
It's Lego cement blocks.
Okay. So if anybody's ever built a building, there's something very, very important that's needed when you build a building. I'm about to say something a little bit more. You have to expand your consciousness, maybe more in the abstract. Building a building essentially involves taking a concept called the building, i.e., and whatever you want to do in that building. That's the mission. I want to build this building. There's only one problem. You can't build buildings in, thin air. Right? It wouldn't do so well. You need to actually put the building on terra firma, on the ground. Right? I know it sounds a bit like, yeah, obviously. Well, let's go with that for a second. There's no real connection per se with the activities of the building and the earth. It's more that it just has to be that way, right? The building is all of your projects and goals are happening inside your building. My home with my family, everything that we are working for and building is happening inside of our home. Just the only problem is you can't have a home just in outer space. Even if it's in outer space, it needs to be somewhere. Here, it needs to be in the ground. You need to put it. But there's one problem. If you try to build a building on the ground, what will happen? It just sinks. It'll fall over. So what do you need to do?
Build it into the ground.
And what do we call? You need to lay something down before you build the building.
Lay a foundation.
Lay the foundations. Now the foundation, the Yesod, is not the building. In fact, the foundation has no real relevance to your mission, the projects, your goals of what the building represents. Let's say you have a building that you're a bank. So you invest money, and you hold people's money. So you need a building in order to invest people's money because you want to have this project called being a bank. But you can't have a bank just built on the ground. It's going to fall over. So you need this thing called the Yesod. You need the foundation of the building. But the Yesod doesn't have a shaykhus to the building. It's just I can't have a building without it. I need it, but it doesn't have to do with the building. It just allows the building to be on the ground. And I can't have a building just floating somewhere. I need it on the earth. So the foundation is the intermediary. I'm going to use an important word that we're going to talk about this week, is the connection, is the interface between all of the goals that I have, the building, and then the terra firma, that it's actually implanted on planet Earth. I need this thing called a Yesod, a foundation. And if I don't have a good foundation, God forbid, then what happens to my building and all the projects and all my goals and dreams called this building?
Slight sign of trouble, it falls.
That's right. This building that I want to build, I could have everything going for me. I could have built it with the finest materials. I could have hired the greatest staff to work inside of it. I could have done everything right. But if something is not right with the foundation of the building, there's big, big problems. That's why whenever they're putting down the foundations of a building, you need all the big guns, the engineers, the top level guys to make sure to sign off that this thing is secure. Because the wise man knows that I could build some crazy thing, right out of Dubai, up to Shemayim. But if the foundations are shaky, it doesn't mean anything. You need to have a good foundation. This week, the whole week, is dedicated to building our own personal foundations. That a person could have everything going for him. He's got a great personality. He's funny. He's smart. He's wise. He's personable. He speaks well. He's got a good job. He's giving. He also knows when to say no. He's balanced. He also stands up for things and doesn't mind defending his views. He also knows when to say thank you. Everything is going for this guy. But there's something called the foundation of his life, that if the foundation is shaky, then everything goes. Yesod, which number in the spheres is Yesod? Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, 6. Okay, so remember that. 6 is going to be an important number. What's the 6th letter of the alphabet? The Vav. Vav is the letter of Yesod. So we explained that Yesod takes the project, takes the goals, and then makes an interface with the earth, the necessity of being here on terra firma. It's a connection. The letter Vav, what does that letter do in the Hebrew alphabet?
Connotes an and.
It connotes and. It always means a connection, right? There's a connection point. It's connecting two ideas. When you say and this, the letter and means I'm connecting the previous idea with the idea that we're now sharing. Making connection. Without the Vav, things are separate, and therefore all the potential could just fall. We have a code for what Yesod means in Kabbalah. Yesod means pleasure. It means pleasure, and it means the pleasure of being connected to something deeply. So back to our building. So it might seem obvious, but if the building is on firm foundations, then there's a great pleasure because all the efforts and all the goals and the project of the building can now continue because it's connected to terra firma. It's able to continue to go. But if something is disconnected on the foundation, God forbid, and the building collapses, there's no connection to all of the potential just crumbles. You could have the best staff. God forbid, chas v'shalom, chas v'shalom. But if the building collapses, then there's no pleasure there. Everything is gone. What are the things that bring us the greatest pleasure? Let's say it this way. When a person is deeply connected to something, a great pleasure comes from that. When he's deeply connected to a project, to a goal, to something, that brings a pleasure. So now we have to see, there's always going to be in our personality things that are being used in a healthy way and things that are being used in an unhealthy way. When we talk about being connected to things, so what would be an example of being connected to things in a healthy way? Deep connection.
Your relationship with your spouse.
Relationship with the spouse would be probably one of the best examples. Deep connection. Whereas, let's say a person connected to unhealthy pleasures, he's deeply connected to alcoholism. He can't stop. He needs to drink. So he might be getting a pleasure from it, but that pleasure is destroying him. It's when the Yesod, its connection point, is an unhealthy, but he can't get away from it. He's fused into it. He's literally connected to it. The building's foundations are built on an unhealthy connection, which will eventually just crumble. But he's connected. He can't get away from alcohol. It's very, very sad. He's trying and he's trying and he's trying, but he's so attached to it. I remember last year, sometimes I ask guys if I could see their phone. It's called doing an audit. And I say, can I see your screen time? Oh, whoa, wait a second. I said, no, don't worry. I won't show anybody. And it shows exactly what you did and how many hours, and then your weekly profile and your daily profile. So I don't want to say these numbers, but I will, just to be mechazik the tzibur, that there was a person who had a daily time usage 19 hours. You will not believe that when I say, and I knew you wouldn't. 19 hours. He's like, I was in bidud, and this, literally 19 hours. Most of it was Netflix. That's a Yesod out of control. I'm so connected. It was like a limb, like an appendage of the guy. He sleeps with it, and then it buzzes and wakes him up in the middle of literally, it's Yesod, deep connection, like an interface. But obviously it's for something completely unhealthy. Let's talk about healthy connection. When a person's connected to davening. Davening, to be so connected. It could be that I know about davening, I even like davening, but if I'm not connected, there's that word, the Yesod, then all of my building is not, it's shaky. What am I connected to? The thing buzzing in my pocket. What am I connected to brings me pleasure. Deep, I'm connected to it. I'm going to it. I want this pleasure from it. I'm deeply connected. Now you might say, I thought we said that in chesed, when chesed goes wrong, when chesed gets out of control, isn't that pleasure, but not for the right things? We said chesed is when I had pleasure for godly things. And when chesed falls to the dark side, that's when chesed is just fallen chesed. So now we're talking about Yesod. So here this is very important. Yesod is pleasure, but that's not the main point of the Yesod. The Yesod is the need of connection. It's like when the Yesod is activated, there's it's stuck. Just like the building is stuck to the ground through the Yesod. It's like a guy is stuck to something. And then he's going to be drawing either an unhealthy pleasure. That's already going to be more in chesed. But the feeling of I'm so bonded to something. I'm mekusher. It's like this deep connection, like an unhealthy relationship. And they're texting each other back and forth, and the guy doesn't. And it's the middle of the night, and they're just using each other. They can't get us so connected. Like abusive relationships. Like the Yesod is very, but for bad. Yeah.
But if it's a healthy Yesod, it's also bad to be with no limits, give everything to a connection.
Isn't that what we have for Hashem? That our Yesod, that we're glued to Hashem 100%, every single second. We have Sheish Mitzvahs Tamidiyas. Sheish Mitzvahs Tamidiyas are miyusad in Yesod, is that a Yid says, I can never get away from these 6 mitzvahs, ever, nor would I ever want to. There's 6 things that a Yid thinks about at all times. He realizes his whole building is standing on these 6 pillars.
Can we say that?
Yichud Hashem, knowing that God is one. Avos Hashem, Emunas b'Hashem, Yiras Hashem, Lo yisasuru acharei levavchem ve'acharei neichem. There's a constant mitzvah, not to stray after your heart and eyes, at all times. To be mekusher to that reality, Kodesh Baruch Hu, it's only you, and that there's no other God. Meaning all the time we're getting fed, maybe there's another God. That's your boss. That's this person. That's that person. Maybe it's the dollar. Maybe it's this thing. That maybe you should worship that. It's only you, Hashem. It's only you. It's only you. The emunah in Hashem is the mitzvah saseh, and the loy saseh is that there's no other God. Meaning whenever you're forced with the option, maybe there's another God, which is a constant mitzvah. You realize a yid is literally at battle all the time. All the time we're getting bombarded with free will opportunities. Are you going to choose to see that cup of coffee in a way of removing the connection to Hashem? Is I'm just basically an animal that has to feed its desires? Or can I now forge deeper connection to Hashem, which is Yesod? All the time. This one bonded feeling with God. I want to see a little bit inside. It's Kedai. Midas ha-Yesod hi ha-koyach l'kasher l'chaberes ha-kol liyos davar echad. Yesod has the ability to make everything one, to unify all parts. All the work we did so far in the Omer, we can now unify it. We're connecting it. Ha-Yesod hu koyach l'kasher dvarim l'chabrim. Shu davar echad shalim. Shemuchan le'pe'ula maisis. Yesod has the ability to take all of these energies and now get it ready to actually do it. That the house can now stand on something. Which is interesting, because when you build a house, what do you build first? The house or the Yesod? Which is interesting. I would have thought that you build the house first. Meaning if the house is all of the chesed, gvur, I would have thought that's like the content of the house. But really, without Yesod, you can't put anything on it. So really the Yesod is the end, but it's also the beginning. You need to have a Yesod to put the house, and then the Yesod makes sure that it stays there, that the house can operate for all eternity. So remember that. V'yesh b'zeh kamen nekudas. Aleph. This is very, very important. How Yesod works. And just before we see this, Yesod, of course, we're going to have to speak about a little bit, of course, is the bris. Being shomer the bris. The bris is, of course, that place of connection between a husband and wife. That's the bris. And it's the vav. That's the Yesod. A person could be a very, 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 president of the United States. He could have built this gewaldige building. He could have a whole reputation. That if a person makes one wrong move with the Yesod, the President of the United States can become a laughingstock. Because he wanted to connect in an unhealthy pleasure that he couldn't get away from, and in 1 second, the whole reputation goes. One thing in the Yesod, just like the building, one problem in the foundation, the whole thing goes. What do you mean? Look at all the work that he did. He's the president. Everybody knows. If something in the Yesod, if something in that area of relations is off, the whole thing is done. It's crazy. But it's so real. We all know that that's the power of the Yesod. So what is Yesod doing? Ha-Yesod machriya umamtze ben ha-netzach ve'ha-hod. The Yesod, just like Tiferes, is helping between when I should use chesed and when I should use gevura, and it comes to Tiferes. Yesod is teaching me when I should use netzach and when I should use hod. Okay? Because what's netzach? Netzach tells me what? Just go. Non-stop. Plow forward. Get the deal done. Move on it. Send the email. Don't stop. They said no, keep going. Keep going. Barricades, go through them. That's netzach. V'hoid mitzamtzem es hanetzach u'magbilos. Hoid says, wait a second, you don't have to go through the barrier, Maybe just stop, maybe we'll go around. Moide, we stop, maybe we'll go around, maybe there's another way to do things. Netzach is l'natzech. Just, once you take the chesed and gevura, and the Tiferes says, move forward on this, this is the right blend of energy, so the Netzach says, let's carry it out now. And the Hoid says, wait a second. Then the Yesod is balancing it out. Shirak ba'ofen shi'eskalei ha'emes. Ha-Yesod machriya beineim. Keder she'atiferes machriya bein chesed legevura. Just like Tiferes comes between Chesed and Gevura, is like an arbiter. When should I use Chesed and move forward with this, theoretically? And when should I say no to an idea? Tiferes blends that together. Yesod does the same thing when it comes to action. Hayesod Beis. So one, Yesod takes, when do I use Netzach to actualize ideas, and when do I use Hoy to actualize ideas? The second part of Yesod is it takes all the energy, this is more what we talked about today, and it gives it a resting place. It's the intermediary, it's the foundation of the building, that my whole building can stand on something and go on and actually live into this world, and my projects won't fizzle out and my ideas won't fizzle out. How often do we have ideas and they just fizzle out? Like they say, New Year's resolutions. It just fizzles. You know why? Because generally while the person's making the New Year's resolutions, they're breaking the Yesod at that time. They're making the New Year's resolutions, they're kissing the girl and the ball's dropping. You fool! You think it's going to go? There's no Yesod here. While you're making the Yesod is being nifgam. The Yesod has to be in place for things to actually have kiyum and continuity and moving forward. V'hainu, hu loikech es ha'or shalahem, es ha'tachnis shalahem, ech sha'adavar tzarech liyos lefi darkoi shel kol echad mehem, v'hu oise mizeh tachnis maisis hamat'im alotzeis lepoyo. The Yesod takes all of the energy of a project and then lets it stand somewhere. Takes the whole feel, the whole vibe, in a certain way, like the person at the meeting who's listening to all the different points, and then at the end of the meeting he says, and let me summarize. And he takes all the points and the action strategy and he puts it all together and they all say, yes, that's it, that's the Yesod. He's holding on to the whole project and it's all clear. Because one person was saying we should move forward, one said we should go back, one said we should spend this much money, one said maybe a little bit less, and then he takes all the points, and now it's going to get ready for actualization. Gimel, Yesod has a third power. The Yesod is mavir lamalchus es ha'or. That Yesod is a conduit, just like in relations, that the male, that's the conduit that takes that energy and transports it to the mother. It's the conduit that brings all that energy and then deposits and gives it in order that something can grow from that. And it takes it and then delivers it to a place that it now can be built up. This is the Yesod. This whole week is about building what we're talking about now. This is one of the ways that Hashem is organizing the world, is through this. He's getting ready, he's taking all the energy and he's going to get ready to deposit it. He's going to get ready to see which should it move forward strong, move back. It's the summarization of everything as it's about to come into actuality. It's also the connection. Takes all the ideas, like we said, like the round table meeting, and all of them getting put together. It's a very important line. The Yesod says, what would be the appropriate way for me to give this guy a new house? What would be the appropriate way for me to give the shefa, for me to give the blessing that I want to bestow? It takes all the pieces and then it's about to deliver the payload. V'al de midas hayesod shekisher v'timtzos es hakol letachnas maisis hu mavir satsura hazu lemidas hamalchus shenyon lahoitzi adavar lepoel mamish. And then as it comes into Malchus, which is next week, Malchus is actually when you see now a house. Malchus is when now there's a child. Malchus is now, it's actually, it came. But the Yesod is gathering it all, delivering what's going to be the best delivery mechanism, and then it's actually going to come into fruition. That's Malchus. Malchus is also the earth. Malchus is always the earth. The woman, Malchus is the land. That's why we describe male and female. And just for a second, we're going to take away men and women. We mean the male energy and female energy. So we refer to the earth, the land, as female. Even we say Mother Earth. There's such a thing that the earth is female. And we talk about that the heavens are a male energy, because the male energy is giving, providing, and then the female, the earth, is receiving and then growing from that. So the skies are providing the rain. That's like the male organ providing all of that blessing. And then the earth, if it doesn't receive anything, gets dried up. It requires the rains. And then when the rains come, when that earth becomes filled and inseminated, then it bursts forth fruits, and that's like an analogy of children. The earth just gives forth its blessing. So the Yesod is the connection point as it's coming down, and then the Malchut is when it actually lands in the earth, and the earth bears fruits. Okay, so this week we're going to be into Yesod. B'siyat d'shmai, we should be zocher to the Yesod, the tzaddik Yesod, Olam Mashiach Tzidkenu here in Omer. A wonderful week. Call too.
Now one question.
Yeah.